Hi, welcome to Be Fabulous. I'm Dawn. This is my podcast, and my company is Advanced Life Coaching. So, thank you for either watching my YouTube video on Advanced Life Coaching, or maybe you're hearing this podcast on one of your favorite platforms. Please subscribe, and if you can, support my podcast. We accept one-time or monthly donations and help me keep this podcast alive. So, wow, there's a lot we could be talking about today. And I really want to start by just addressing that I watched an interview with an NFL player, and he was saying that he was the leader of his team. And it made me start thinking about what makes a really good leader. The things he was saying were inspiring, and I feel like he was a good leader. So it made me start looking at some of the qualities. And I think if you want to be a leader, whether you want to be a great leader in your own life, or whether you want to be maybe a leader or a great influencer amongst your family or your peers or in a work situation, I think it's really important to first determine what makes a great leader. And I would say that you have to be really righteous in your courage, righteous in your confidence, and in your convictions. Really know who you are. A great leader will have a very strong moral character. They will have integrity, and which means they will know right from wrong. They will be compassionate with their fairness and with their judgments. And a great leader will look at situations without judgment, listen to what's being said, and look at the big picture. What are the opportunities? What are the learnings? What can come out of making decisions, right? And I think, they have to be logical. A leader cannot lead with fear and be a great leader. Fear is one of those emotions which shuts down your logical thinking. It literally shuts down the way your brain processes information. And when you're living in fear, you make rash judgments from emotion. And when you're making decisions from emotion, you're not being open to all the other opportunities out there. You're seeing things from a very restricted point of view. And that made me start thinking about everything going on, all the political stuff, from like why people are so passionate about their political views, or even when it comes to the whole COVID virus and the vaccines. And some of the questions that I think people should start asking themselves, especially so you can be your own true leader, or if you're an employer especially, or even if you're an employee, you might want to ask yourself, why do the employers, why would they have a say in your healthcare? I mean, are they telling you how to treat your diabetes? Are they part of the decision making if you had cancer and you were looking for a treatment? So why, does your employer force you to get a flu shot every year? And if you're an employer, why don't you? And whatever that answer is should be the same answer for why would you want to force other people to get a vaccination that they don't feel is safe yet, or they don't feel comfortable taking at this time. This is experimental, and although they're saying that one of them has been FDA approved, I don't understand personally how that can be when you have to pass animal clinical trials and, per their own guidelines, have years of testing to see what the long-term effects are. And for something that's only been around a year, I don't see how you can have multiple years of testing to see what the effects will be. So for it to be approved, it can only be emergency approved, because it hasn't been around long enough to be actual FDA approved according to the guidelines for everything else that they've been testing and every other medication that's out there. But that being pushed aside, what I guess where my questions would be is, like, a great employer should never mandate something like this because it's out of their expertise. It's out of their scope of knowledge. They don't know what your doctor is advising. And what if for some reason your doctor is advising that this is not the best thing for you? Maybe you are at risk for blood clots or on blood clotting medication or anti-blood clotting medication or something. And this is known possibly for blood clots. So it just doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem like it would be within our constitutional freedoms to tell somebody that they can't work or they're going to lose their job if they get something that may be against their doctor's recommendation or even against their own personal religious views. And, that I can't really speak on because that would be between them and whatever religion, they follow and how they feel about things. But from a medical point of view, let's just take a moment and consider this. Now, I realize people are very passionate one way or another about these topics. And some of the questions that you could ask would be, well, are they passionate about this because they see it from a political view? And it seems like they've made this vaccine very political, which it probably should not be. People should keep it in the scope of where it belongs, and that would be in the medical aspect of things. But if they are going to make it political, why? Why do you like it because your politicians tell you should? And why do you dislike it because maybe a politician, you don't like them? It really shouldn't you shouldn't be making your choices based on a politician. You should be making your choices based on what feels right to you, what's good for you, what information and knowledge do you have, what research have you done, and why are you making the choices you're making. Trying to make it political, I think, really takes away from what it is. The second question would be, could this be based out of fear? Why do people want to mandate this? Is it out of fear? And then you have to look back and be like, okay, so how much fear did the media push during COVID? How many times did you turn on the news and all you heard was fear-based information? How much fear did government put into your mind? How often did they push this fear agenda? Another thing that you could ask yourself is, how much did the media and the government spend how much time did they spend trying to ease those fears? How much effort did they put into their news reports, or how much effort did they put in to making sure that the citizens knew about building a healthy immune system? How much time and effort did they put in to, telling people what you can do to stay healthy? I heard a lot about people who are unhealthy, but I really didn't hear any information about what you should be doing to stay healthy. And for me, that's another concern. I didn't really hear a lot about strengthening the immune system, or even them pushing a lot of known holistic treatments, which are readily available. And as far as I know, they didn't put a lot of effort into easing people's fears. It seemed like they just wanted to bombard people with worst case scenario and even embellish some of those facts. So another question you could ask is, why would they want to make these mandates? Could it be because this fear was created by this unknown version of a virus? Well, the fact that this is new and unknown would be reason for concern. Trying to scare people to death because of it, I think, is unnecessary. But because it's new, it definitely is a reason to study it and a reason for concern. But then you also have to think, at one time, influenza was new. Colds were new. It just wasn't during our lifetimes. And I have to think, how did the people back then feel? Like, how did they feel about these medicines and vaccines that were offered to them? If you live back in the time of the Spanish flu or polio, and suddenly there was a treatment for it, I wonder how they felt. I wonder if they thought, wow, I don't want to take this. I don't know what this is. Or did they feel relieved? And I think a lot of that has to do with how you present something. And the way people have presented this new vaccine doesn't lead to a lot of sense of security with it. And but I do wonder what it was like. I mean, obviously they didn't have social media. They didn't have access to all the science and the information that we have now. So maybe we are able to make better, more informed decisions. And maybe that's part of the reason people are hesitant as well. But you have to go back and think. Influenza and colds, pneumonia, all these things at one time were new. And now they're common. People don't even think twice about them. It's flu season. Okay, stock up on your vitamin C. Make sure you get out in the sun. Use a steam room. Sweat out the toxins. Like people, they know what to do for the flu. And my intuition tells me pretty soon we're going to feel the same way about this COVID thing. Because it's already in our ecosystem. We don't fear the flu every year. And there is a new flu shot every year. Yet it's not mandatory. We didn't shut down the world for it. We don't shut down the world every season when we have flu, just because there's a new variant. And people are talking about the variant for COVID. Well, on a logical level, there's a new variant every year. So how is I guess my question is, how is this really any different other than the fact that it's new? And it's something that we in our lifetimes experience for the first time. 5 generations from now, 100 years from now, people are going to look back and do you think they might think we were acting ridiculous out of a fear-based mindset, that we exaggerated everything? They might, they may not. We don't know. But when we look back 100 years ago at illnesses back then, we don't even, we don't go into a panic about it now. So I think we have to keep our mindset in that perspective that even though COVID-19 is a new virus right now in our ecosystem to us, it's really not new. Coronavirus has been around, that's the cold, a very long time. SARS has been around for quite a while. When that one came out, we didn't shut down the world. And I work in a casino where we were doing extra cleaning and everything for that. We handled it like we would a bad flu season. So it kind of makes me wonder, why this virus? Why did this happen? And why this vaccine? Is it even really about this virus, which has now mutated and we have different variants? So kind of like the flu shot, it's the old. Is it really worth getting the shot now? Because it's kind of for the original, the old one. So you have to question that as well. This virus just seems to be following kind of the same path as all the other viruses that we have come to know and accept in the world that we share with them. It's in our ecosystem. And yet the government still want this constant lockdown, constant control over people. They want you to get this shot. My question is why? Why this particular shot? COVID's not like it was a year ago. It's kind of filtered itself out. It's dissipated. It's mutated. It's not as strong. It doesn't have the panic feel like it did when it first came out. So why are they still pushing this fear agenda? That would be the question I ask. Your employers, they don't threaten to fire you every single year if you don't get your flu shot. So why are they threatening people who don't get this one? To me, it just does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. Why are they putting pressure on the employers to do something that the government cannot do? And which is the reason that the government's trying to put the pressure on the employers. Because they know legally they can't, at least here in the United States, they can't force you to do this. Now, people have natural immunity. Most people who have gotten sick, they've even done studies that prove that their immune system is stronger than most of these vaccines. And some people say, well, we don't know how long that immunity will last. Well, we also don't know how long the coverage from these shots last. So you could say those are pretty comparable. In fact, some studies, the ones from Israel, say that natural immunity will last longer. And it just seems to be less and less medical and more control, which makes me wonder, what is the real reason for this? And I guess that's a valid question. So maybe the next question should be, why do they want this particular shot for this respiratory infection or virus worldwide? Why do they want the world population to have it? World population. And I realize COVID went across the globe, and that's part of the reason. But what is the other part? What is it really? Really? What is there more to it? And if not, then why do you continue, or why do they feel like they need to continue on the fear basis? Why not just get rid of the fear aspect of it and just give more common information? the information that people are seeking, and let people know why this can be trusted. Let them know, what you're still doing in trials or in testing. A lot of people have had a lot of nasty reactions as well. So that, again, creates fear for people, because now they fear for their own health on a way that maybe they weren't afraid of the virus, but now you've created a secondary fear, which is they're afraid of having worse side effects from this shot. So now you have a double fear. Some people who weren't afraid of COVID are now afraid of having a bad reaction to this shot. Or they're afraid of losing their job. Or they're afraid of what society going to become. Am I going to be able to are they going to get to the point where I can't grocery shop? We are, I believe, creating more fears, which are really counterproductive for people being really, really healthy. So, because you have to realize when you're in this state of fear, you're not logically thinking. You cannot be emotionally stable and have these negative emotional reactions at the same time. They're two different parts of the brain that are controlling these areas, and they're not working together. And on an unconscious level, you're just creating more of a fear-based trauma bond. And that's also not going to help you be emotionally stable. And it's not going to help you to think logically. So we really need to get rid of this fear, which makes me also wonder, why does it seem like big business, the government, wants to keep people in a fear state? Do they not want us to think logically? Why not? Why wouldn't they want us to have common sense and think logically? What are they so worried about if people are thinking clearly? That's another question that maybe we should be asking, and I don't ever hear the media asking these questions. So when you have this process going on in your brain, you really have to be in control of your own emotions. And when you are in control of your own emotions, this is when you'll be able to think clearly and really decide what is best for you. And I think if you want to be a leader in your own life, if you want to lead those who need you, such as your children or family, maybe other, influences that you have, even being a great leader at work with your coworkers or the people that work above or below you, you need to really have a stable sense of self so that you can logically maneuver through all these mandates and figure out what really is fair and just, what really is best, what does your gut and your intuition tell you, what really is the best solution, and what's best not just for you, but all the people around you, the people who are going to visit your businesses, the people who are going to interact with you. Do you want them to live in a fear-based world? Do you want their thinking cloudy with fear? Or are you going to give them freedom that here in America, at least, we are accustomed to, and make choices with their own lives and their own bodies that allow them to think clearly and be logical and really make better choices which impact everybody? I don't think at this point that we need to live in fear of this virus, because most people have already overcome it. And those who were fortunate enough to never be sick probably have such an awesome immune system they don't have to worry about it. And it seems like the worst is over. And for that, we need to be grateful. And we really need to put, that gratitude out and start focusing on keeping our own health and our immune system strong. And that's how we should be supporting one another. So I'm Dawn. Thank you very much. Love you all. Communicate without hate, and God bless.